My exciting punk moment in fashion was Alexander McQueen's Autumn-Winter 1996 collection, Dante, which was shown at Nicholas Hawksmoor's Christchurch in Spitalfields. For me, it was it was my second year at St Martin's. I was desperate to get into this show. I kind of hovered outside the door, obviously with no ticket. Just before the doors of the church closed, someone shouted, "Oh, it's John's boyfriend here." I instantly became John's boyfriend for the evening and raced through the church doors, and then the show kind of started. Music was like this angry, aggressive Prodigy track, and everyone was sat on the pews, and through like the gunfire, the girls kind of started coming out and stuff. And for me, it was more about not necessarily the collection was so punky, even though there were elements. There was flashing and exposing of the skin, and it was more about that kind of anger that he had, and the way he kind of reconstructed the garments and stuff that felt kind of punk for me.
Talk to me a bit about that kind of attitude, that because as you said, it was his kind of energy that was quite punkish. And tell me a bit about that.
I think generally his collections had that kind of strong aggression that he kind of wanted, like there was a message in there that he kind of wanted to get out. I always kind of felt that a collection for him was more kind of therapy, that he was getting something off his chest, and to get that out, he kind of had to do a collection, and that was kind of like his therapy almost.
So he wasn't just trying to shock, because a lot of people say that of McQueen, like we mentioned before, that idea that he was a misogynist. A lot of people presume that he was trying to be provocative.
Yeah, no, I think that he didn't think about how he wanted to shock people that season. I think it was about whether it was crushed Beatles wings or the bumpster trouser, which was kind of his version of kind of trying to show the woman in the most beautiful light and to make her as tall and elongated as possible. So he exposed the midriff and cut the trousers as low as possible. It wasn't misogyny. It was like the adornment of women, really, I think.
Let's talk a bit more about Dante and that collection, because obviously, what was it that you found sort of so? Was it the venue? Was it the music? Was it the way the whole thing came together? What was it about that collection in particular that really?
I mean, it's definitely, of course, the atmosphere that he creates, that tension. The show starts and it's gunfire, and you kind of want to think, what's that connection to the collection? Later on, there were like Don McCullum prints on the denim and stuff, so that you knew that was the kind of thing. Girls came out with, like Sarah Murray came out with like a unicorn's horn on. Other girls came out with antlers. It was kind of, it was kind of really shocking and kind of like scary, which, he excelled at. But it wasn't a collection that kind of hung together as a complete collection. It was like idea after idea. It was later on that he kind of flicked into doing like a full collection that had some really strong, not necessarily strong, some really thought out kind of story. This was like this narrative that he had that he kind of had to get out there.
Do you think that's what makes McQueen so punkish? It is those ideas and that kind of energy. It always felt like he almost had too much to say with every piece he did. Do you think that's why? Because as we talked about before, a few people have picked McQueen as their kind of punk person for this series, but there is something about him that is just so. There's kind of an aggression to the energy.
Yeah, it was kind of quite raw. It was like amazing cut clothes, but they were almost falling apart, but not through. It was the way that he kind of produced the garments and stuff, but it was like these beautiful, weird garments that fell off the body, or, he cut and slashed and exposed parts of the body that you kind of never thought about doing before, found different erogenous zones from like elbows to God knows what. It was that, and you kind of don't get that now from designers. It's kind of, they think they have one kind of idea and it's a dress, and it's normally, a tube dress with short sleeves, and they're thinking about red carpet, and then that dress goes into 40 different outfits. With him, it was like idea after idea. And quite inspiring for me as like a fashion student, sat there heart beating like crazy watching these girls come out as like animals. It was kind of genius.
We talked a bit before, which I think is so punkish actually when you said it, about this merging of old and new, and obviously that's very intrinsic to McQueen and the way he trained, because obviously he trained in Savile Row and then went to St Martin's, but it's this idea of completely sort of rehashing something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
he'd take like a beautiful jacquard that you would have seen kind of in a beautiful painting from Elizabethan times that looked like an Elizabethan shape, but then he'd slash the arms and he'd slash the back of it and put buttons, asymmetric buttons, and wrap the body and stuff. So he really deconstructed a garment and then put it back together in his own kind of little crazy way.
You mentioned that, you know, designers don't have those same kind of, at least they don't have, those ideas aren't as visual on the catwalk anymore. You know, as you mentioned, it's more about red carpet. Everything's a bit more considered now. Do you think we'll get another McQueen, or is that a simplistic question?
No, not at all. I think there are people out there that have obviously been inspired by him and stuff, and I think it comes in cycles. I think, you know, we hit that moment a few years ago where everything was kind of simple again in the 90s, and it was kind of like very clever cutting and stuff, but it wasn't shocking like Balenciaga, and I think we had that for a long time, and I think we're going to go back to, well, I hope we go back to this. I mean, I sit there fashion show after fashion show thinking, God, if I see another show with a white jacket walk past, and it's like so snoozy, I'd like someone to really create an atmosphere for me, and I remember that show then, and that's all I want to shoot. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really important.
You want someone to give you a wake-up call, give you a nudge?
No, I want someone to give me a narrative, I want to take me to a really special place for, you know, 5 to 8 minutes. Funnily enough, this show was like 25 minutes long. I mean, that's a proper fashion show to me. Used to 8 minutes, bang, done, 40 exits, in and out. He really took you somewhere, which I think is where we need to go again, definitely.